So today we are going to be talking about the differences between manual stretches and devices, because someone on the Reddit asked, I don't know, about a week ago, if devices are so good, why do we even talk about manual stretches? And it got me thinking, we got to talk about this. Okay, so basically the old idea was that the only reason why you want to do manual stretches is because you did not have the privacy nor funding to have a device. So at a certain point, you would not be able to do manual stretches sufficiently to see gains in a fast manner. But two of the biggest gainers I've ever known both use manual stretches constantly. They actually both used a manual stretch and the Bathmate. One being my business partner, Hank. You guys should know him by now. And then someone who goes by 710 on the Matters of Size forum. They both basically stretched and used the Bathmate. That's it. Now, I still think Bathmate is a shit device, but there is a relatively decent chance that we're overlooking something with manual stretches. So let's talk about it. But before I get into it, I understand that my content is really jumpy. So if you're looking for a streamlined way to make your penis longer with a somewhat scientific method, check out the links in the description below for my books on girth and length. Basically, I've taken a bunch of research from beyond the penis, particularly in physiotherapy, to make a very scientifically sound routine compared to my contemporaries. So if you're interested, check it out in the description below. So let's go over the pros and cons of manual stretches and devices before we really get into it. First pro for stretching is that you can do it anywhere. So like, you don't need to worry about taking your device with you on a business trip or something like that. You can just stretch when you get to the hotel room. You can stretch whenever you go to the bathroom. You can get that volume in however you need to. Second pro for manuals is that it's mostly free. The only thing that you could really imagine needing is something for grip. So baby powder or rubber gloves, and that's very tiny in comparison compared to, say, a $170 penis extender. One of the pros for devices is that this is set it and forget it. You put it on, the tension is going to be relatively constant. You don't have to worry about that. Unlike with manual stretches, and this is the main downside of manual stretches, is that it takes some strength, you know? So if you're holding this position for 10 to 20 minutes at a time, you know, you'll be taking your sets and everything like that. But it's going to be relatively taxing, particularly on your tricep and your grip. So if you are not, even if you are a relatively strong guy, you'll run into muscular fatigue and therefore not necessarily knowing how much tension you're using, which is another con. With manual stretches, it is very hard to know how much tension you are doing. So with the old idea of progressive overload, we could not know how much tension we are using. So the only thing you could really increase time after time is time. But then as our arms tire out, we'd be using less tension. So it's not ideal from that kind of perspective. With devices, there's usually a higher learning curve because you need to learn how these springs work, for example, on the Apex extender, or learn how to put on the male hanger comfortably, or figure out how to use this without, this is a vacuum bell, without losing suction. It took me at least a week to learn how to use a vacuum belt. It took me at least a week to learn how to use a male hanger properly. Apex is a little different, but I have a lot more experience than you guys. The main beauty of devices is that you can use them when you're doing something else. So like, I've gained an inch hanging just by being at my computer playing video games, for example. That's the beauty of hanging, is that you can do so much other stuff, at least when you're to a desk. With an extender, it is a little easier to do something else. That's why so many people use devices. It's the sheer convenience factor. That, and you can get the tension exact to what you want. So because 5 pounds hanging is going to be 5 pounds of tension applied to your penis. With an extender, you can get about 10 pounds of tension if you get the springs compressed to 50 millimeters. And that is going to be much easier to track, particularly for progressive overload, compared to manual stretches. But this is where manual stretches shine, and I don't think we've talked about this enough. So with my proxy here, typically with extenders, we would see the stretch come from the center because we have two anchor points, one at the base and then one at the tip. So that means it's being pulled apart. With a hanger, you are only getting an anchor point right here, right at the base. So there is very limited places that we see collagen fatigue. So depending where the force is supplied is where the collagen is going to be the most broken down. So if we're only stretching from either right here or right here, we're missing that part of the shaft and that part of the shaft. So on paper, with manual stretches, all we have to do is take our offhand, grip here, or grip here, and grip here, or here, something like that, and pull, and then we can potentially fatigue different fibers of the Tunica albuginea, causing faster gains and more growth factors to be released. So if we're looking at this from the golden path perspective, we are trying to eke out as much growth factor as we possibly can. So with the manual stretches that I have implemented, there are two things that I'm looking for. Momentary stress causes more stretching of the stem cells responsible for collagen production. So the more those cells stretch, the more activity they have. Then, since we're moving a bit up the shaft when we pull, when we're doing these semi-erect stretches, not necessarily a recommendation yet, we can see different angles of attack essentially to the Tunica albuginea. And then, since we're only going to be doing this for about 5 to 10 minutes, we finish up with either our hanger or the apex here to actually get the fatigue needed to see the strain. So the math still maths. The science says 4 to 6% strain. So while you're in device, you need to be about 4 to 6% longer by the end of the session, which means after your session, you need to be about 2% longer to be seeing gains, or about 1/4 of an inch for most guys. So we have two different avenues of attack right now. Essentially, we'll have different ways to stimulate collagen growth and excrete growth factors just from that. Then we add in the expansion training, and then we add in the hypoxia training, and then we add in the Tunica release. We're basically having 5 to 6 different pathways for growth signal with adding in and mixing different elements. Notice how I'm not doing a lot of anything on paper. It's just a relatively mixed approach, and that's what I'm starting to think is the best way, ergo the golden path to seeing pretty good gains over the course of a year. So we will find out in the future, but essentially guys, so even if you guys don't think what I'm doing with the golden path idea is going to work, there is still evidence, like from a physical sense, just by changing the grip point on the shaft, we will be able to see more collagen fatigue, and that at the end of the day, that's what's going to be causing the growth. So I do recommend guys that are only using devices add in just a bit of manual stretching beforehand, particularly with two hands, to get different results from your stretching and elongation and making it more effective. So that wraps this up. I actually think I got through this faster than I wanted to. Let me know in the comments what you think. Remember to like and subscribe. Hank has passed me and my ego does not like that, so make sure you subscribe here. You can also get my supplement brand, Leviathan Supps, on Amazon. I do not have any in shot right now, but I've talked about them in the last video. I'm sure most of you guys already know about Leviathan's wellness on Amazon. I will see you in the next one.